Hey everyone, Nick Apicella here with another competitor spotlight video. Tell us who you are and what you got.
Hi, my name is Charlie Simmons. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm on audio specialist and Team Zapco now. So in here we have a pretty simple, at least I think it's pretty simple. So we come under here, move the cover board. We have two Zapco 400.2 LX amps. This is actually number 18 and that's number 17. We have a Moscone 430. That is without a doubt one of the best amplifiers I've ever heard. And then we have a Focal KX30 sub in a sealed enclosure, right around 1.3 cubic. And then we have a Helix DSP.3S.
Cool.
So yes, so
looks like a pretty straightforward trunk, like a daily driver type of car.
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually built to be a daily driver, and then we bought my wife her new car when she got a big girl job, and now it just sits at a shop, and it's driven 4,500 miles this year.
Oh, nice.
So it is not a daily driver anymore.
4,500 miles. That's still pretty good.
Yeah, So we have our power and our signal. Oh, I'm shaking really bad.
No, that's all right. You're nervous?
No, actually, I just shake now.
Yeah. Getting older.
I know, I need to go to the doctor.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
So what's going on up here?
So up here we have, nothing special.
Oh.
We have some Acutone 6.5 in the door. And then
looks like a custom grill setup that you did too?
Yes. Rob Bess actually built that.
Cool.
The car was built by me and Rob and some of the other members of the audio specialist team.
And then what else you got going on up here?
So we have the Acutone C30 AM and the C100 AM, and then we have a FIO M11 Pro going to the back straight into the Helix via digital coax. Cool. With a RSD custom cable. Fantastic cables.
Cool.
So
let me ask you this: what is? I guess that's pretty much the system. Let me ask you. What prompted? Maybe this speaker selection or maybe this layout. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were two things. There's what prompted the speakers is I saw Pete using them and he spoke so highly of them, and then I got to hear them in your car, and ever since then, you can ask my wife, I was obsessed. Obsessed. They were my phone background. Really? And I didn't even own them yet. Obsessed, right? So I told Rob about them, and then he contacted you, and well, we know the rest. So yeah. I couldn't get them out of my head. The detail is, I always say you can taste it. You can just taste the detail. And what inspired the layout is, the door already had a hole in it, so I just stuck them there. Honestly, it was just the quickest way to get them in there. And they're in there with 3/4 inch ABS, multiple layers to push it out towards the door, towards the door card. And then the layout for the pillars, I actually got to sit in before he retired. Jason Hale had a Honda Accord Coupe.
Oh yes, he did.
And the way he built this pillar in particular, the way he had tucked it in, and then he actually had his tweeters in a sail panel, and he had smaller drivers. But we managed to come up with a design. Rob had his guys cut me some templates, like the acrylic templates for the shape, and then I did the painstaking process of gluing sticks and filling it in, and sanding.
How many hours did you sand?
At least 10 on each pillar. This one pillar has about 1/4 of a gallon of body hardener in it,
and most of it probably just was sanded off.
Most of it was sanded off.
Yeah, and imperfections, redo it. Imperfections, redo
and it just forever and ever.
I know that story way too well.
Yeah, man, it takes forever. And then the worst part is under here, because it sits on the dash, I designed it to sit here because I knew it was going to weigh so much. I didn't want my pillar to sag.
Oh, you kind of use it to kind of take a bulk of the weight.
Yeah.
That's a good design.
Thank you.
I've actually done a very similar setup in an Accord of, actually, I think this same generation.
Yeah, this is a 14.
Yeah, same car.
Yeah.
I did a very similar setup.
Yeah, and the other thing that we had to do actually is there's a harness that runs through here, and before I had my 3s up in the pillar, like up here.
Yeah.
And so the harness was in the way, so I had to pull this harness out. I cut the wire, extended the wires, and then we shoved the harness down into the dash. So not only have I had to modify, like the doors and stuff, but I've had to start cutting into this thing's wiring to make room for things.
Oh boy. All right.
And then we try to get them, I wanted as much detail out of them, and I thought, well, best way to do that is probably on axis or slightly off.
Yeah.
So this one is just slightly off because of the way the door has to close and things.
Yeah.
And the other side is pretty
dead on axis.
The center of the mid should be pretty much at the center of your ear.
Yeah.
So,
it looks like it from here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what's your, because I know you have a little bit different background than most people here. How did you get into sound quality?
Yeah, so great question. So I was a bass head. My
Probably
dad
still are a little bit,
Oh
right?
my gosh, yes, you better believe it. I have a tune on this thing that just like jams. The crossovers are super safe with the sub is turned up, and the bass is all in the back, but it's fun,
Yeah.
And then, so what happened is when I turned 16, my dad had always had subs in his car, so I grew up listening to it, right?
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, hey Dad, can we put subs in my car? And he's like, sure, you'll save up the money. And what he did is he took me down to the local audio shop, because he just didn't have time to do it with me.
Yeah.
And they put a system in for me. It was just an Alpine 12, a radio, and some Alpine Type S door speakers. Nothing wild, and I'm 16, and I'll never forget that rush I got when I first pulled it out. Oh my gosh, I was so thrilled. And it's like I'm chasing that high forever now.
So you were competing in SPL, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So until that was my system, pretty much for a while, and I changed it, upgraded things every now and then. And eventually I worked at that local audio shop, Postal Electronics in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So when I worked there, of course, you work there, so you got to have the cool stuff. That's when it really kicked in and I started getting overboard. I probably had a couple $1,000s worth of gear on my account pretty quick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then
how did you get into SQ? Sound quality,
yeah. So I went to a mecha show in Newport, Tennessee, and I hope he sees this video, but Christopher Anderson, I walked over to the SQ side, and there were some guys over there, and a lot of times people are shy when they don't know someone, or there's a snowman, so to speak. There's somebody not normally around.
Yeah.
Well, Christopher Anderson put me in his car, and I was blown away. It wasn't that the car was exceptional. Don't get me wrong, it sounded good.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad, but it was like, I just never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
And from right then, I remember I went home and I told my wife, I said, I'm switching.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Let me ask you this. I always remember the first sound quality, the first decent sound quality car I ever heard is forever ingrained in my brain as the best sound quality, the best sounding car ever. But even though definitely
it's
probably
not,
isn't, but it's still you remember it as that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I remember it. He's such a great guy. He's unfortunately had some struggles in his life with his health and everything. So he isn't competing that much anymore, but yeah. And then from there I started hanging out with guys from Team Audio Specialists, just kind of accidentally. I went to
local to you, right?
Yeah, sort of about an hour away. But I then bought a different car, built it for SQ, went to a show in Ashland City, Tennessee, where I met Tim Smith, Jason Hale, all those guys.
Yeah.
And then they invited me over for a little get together, and then I discovered Jason Hale's secret stash, and I was in trouble.
Oh boy. Yeah. I'm good friends with Jason. I know of that stash really well.
I was in trouble, and I'll be full honest. If it wasn't for his help and all that, I probably wouldn't have been able to afford to get into it I was. And then
that brings me to another question. What would you, getting into it and finding someone, what kind of advice or what kind of stigma would you like to break regarding someone coming to these events and meeting people? I always say it's really, everyone's very friendly. You just have to literally just open your mouth and say hi.
That's the first thing that came to my head is if you, I tell you what, if you see me at an event, come talk to me, all right? Because I will take you around. I will talk your head off, okay? I'm not afraid to make friends. And you have to understand that a lot of these guys have known each other for 20 years, so they have their niches and stuff.
So that's why it might seem like it's people in circles, but it's not. They're just standing in circles, catching up with each other.
Because this is when they see each other.
And everyone is always happy to meet someone.
Oh my gosh! And pretty much as long as someone doesn't have a judge in their car, they'll let you get in.
Yeah.
And the thing is, some people, it used to be very hoity-toity and I don't want to show you my secrets or anything. Yeah. And now,
it hasn't been like that since the early 2000s.
I know. It's so much different now. And also, the last thing I would want to say is, we're not out here sniffing each other's farts. We're not like that. We're really cool people. We're just hanging out, listening to cool cars, and having a fun time. You know, come join us. We're happy to have everyone.
That's probably the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, because that's how people perceive us, unfortunately, and we're the opposite, man.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes we can be that way.
A little bit.
There's a couple.
Maybe. So now, last question. What was this year? What do you think was the one, like, aha moment you had in your car? Like upgrading it, like whether it was a specific upgrade or a specific tuning method or just something. What was the biggest, like, aha thing that improved your car this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually two things. First thing was changing to the MASQ 430. It's such a musical and open amplifier with the Class A circuitry in it. And especially with these drivers, it's just outstanding. And then the other thing is I discovered a particular frequency was beaming, and we could not figure out why it sounded the way it did when your head was just in a certain spot, and we figured out that that particular frequency was beaming really bad. So we were finally able to fix that.
Cool.
So those were the two.
So it was like a problem area that you managed to find a way around.
Yeah, finally found it.
How'd you find it?
So I actually didn't find it. The car was getting worked on, and they had an audio control meter in the car, and they would lean forward and they would see the frequency shoot up like 6 dB. They would lean back, see it shoot down 6 dB.
Yeah.
You know, and they just move, and you could just watch it go crazy on the meter. Okay. So the conclusion was it's very likely just a giant laser beam. Yeah. So it's freaking lasers, man. So yeah. All right. This is my favorite thing. It's the hobby that I've done the longest, and yeah, I hope to see some new people around here pretty soon too.
Cool. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up, and good luck to you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Have a good one.